One. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Uncensored Critic podcast. Thank you for joining me once again for another episode with a very, very special guest. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome along Mr. Abdullah Kahn, one of the most promising young directors of our time. And it's an absolute honor to have him on today. So let's take a moment to introduce Abdullah. At such a young age, he's achieved so much with his career, and he's only just getting started with some incredible stuff behind him already. He began his career in the film industry as a runner for the BBC and Channel 4 and Fox. He's taken part in both the BFI Film Academy at Pinewood Studios and the National Film and Television School, producing a film called The Narrator, which went on to appear at the BFI South Bank with representatives from Lucasfilm Limited in attendance. For anyone who doesn't know, they're the guys behind Star Wars. And at the age of 18, he went on to work on some of the biggest films over the last few years, and one of them, of course, being Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, Fast and Furious, Hobbs and Shaw, and Sam Mendes' 1917. And following that, Abdullah spent time as a trainee on 1917. He was then offered a role at Neal Street Productions, which is Sam Mendes' company. In 2021, he founded Rosebud Films, making his directorial debut with Find the Light, which stars George Mackay, which premiered at the Manchester Film Festival. And we currently are awaiting his second short film, Path to Ecstacy, with Mike Jibson, Louie Serkis, and myself. And in 2022, he was selected as Forbes' under 30 as an honoree under 30 in the entertainment category, a prestigious honor very few have. And it's an absolute honor to have you on today, sir. Abdullah, how are you, sir?
Good, Oliver. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's
No,
a
no,
pleasure. You've
no.
had so many cool guests already, including Michael as well, obviously,
Yeah,
who
yeah,
worked with us on the film.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mike was amazing. Yeah, we talked all about Hamilton and stuff, and he was talking about one night they had it's like actual members of royalty in as well. It was crazy. It's absolutely mad. They had to like
Wow.
scooch them in through the back door. There's like secret passageways through the theater and stuff like that. That's what he was talking about. It was like the secrets of the theater. It's great. Anyway, man. So thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. So we start with the starter question for today, which is, where did it all start for you, man? Where did the love of directing and filmmaking start for you? Where did it come from?
Yeah, I mean, I think it pretty much from a very young age, I've always had a passion for watching movies and I've been a movie fan. So I guess it's probably started, the passion came from first being a movie fan and then getting to a certain point where I was like, I did a BFI Academy course and I realized, oh, wait, we made a movie basically at Pioneer Studios. And I was like, oh, cool, it is possible to make something. And then in the end, we were quite proud of the final product. And so it was a journey in terms of like from a very young age, watching a ton of movies, whether it be Finding Nemo, The Lion King, or Lord of the Rings, or whatever. And then like getting to a point where you're in school and you kind of I kind of didn't have many friends and I was quite isolated and I guess this course came about and then we made a movie together and it felt so wholesome and collective and I felt like I made friends for life and some of those people I'm still in touch with today and I think I was around 16 17 at the time. um so it's pretty much started from that academy, that course, that first attempt at giving it a go in making a movie.
Mhm.
And then yeah, so that's kind of how it all unfolded.
Very good. Very nice, man. So how did you how did you get into the industry? What were your first kind of few projects like?
I guess it was that course again was a big deal. So that was the first step in. And then what I was doing is I just kept coming into London and attending networking events and
Mm.
courses and just trying to engage and trying to get a foot in. I didn't know anyone in the industry. I didn't, know family or friends or relatives or anyone. So it was just like I once I did that course, it gave me a big boost, and I was like, if this is what filmmaking is about, I just want to be a part of it. So I just started trying to get my foot into the door and via Facebook groups and BFI Academy and BAFTA and all sorts of brain dance events, and I just kept attending them. And then just a couple of people responded well and said add me up on Facebook, and then I'll add them up on Facebook, and they might post something in a couple of
Mm.
weeks, and they need a runner, and I'd pretty much go to everything. So if I was working and I was also studying, so within the free time I'd have on the weekends
Mm.
or the holidays, I would sort of try and work as much as possible, and that was sort of the way it began. And some of those jobs were unpaid. Pretty much all of them were unpaid, to be honest. But that wasn't really something I was thinking about. It was more just let me go on these sets, let me do the best I could do, and let me just try and build a network. And over time, I guess that portfolio just built, and then I applied to an opportunity through the BFI to work on the Star Wars film,
Mm.
and the Rise of Skywalker, and I guess even that I was in school and I was trying to finish A levels, and I missed out on a few opportunities, and it was quite heartbreaking actually. But eventually, I finally got my foot into the door, and yeah, haven't looked back since.
That's great, man. Can we just quickly touch on Star Wars? What was that whole experience of working on as part of the biggest franchise? I think, well, one of the biggest franchises of all time.
Yeah, it was genuinely insane. I got the job when I was 18. I'd just finished A level, so it was a week after I finished school. I got on Star Wars. I was working in Nando's as well, so I left my job, I left school, went straight into Star Wars, and I guess it was just insane. Like it was
Mm.
day one, you're sort of my boss was like, "Oh, you've got a big smile on your face. I want to take that smile off your face." He told me to pick up a handheld monitor and go and stand next to J.J. Abrams and his DOP and first AD, and they were trying to figure out the scene, and Adam Driver's in Shaw, and they kept looking over to me because I was holding the monitor, and I was like so self-conscious. I was this like young kid not knowing how I've ended up here, and yeah, it was genuinely a surreal experience, and yeah, so many memories, and it was like a start. I guess it was the beginning of everything in a way, and I just learned so much. I just met so many incredible people in so many different departments,
Mm.
and I guess I was always very positive and had a smile on my face, and made a lot of mistakes as well. I wasn't perfect, but I think that really helped in people just taking a liking to me, and just
Yeah,
so I ended up, connecting with a lot of people and learning so much. Yeah.
amazing. And what's J.J. Abrams like as a person? What's he like to be around?
Yeah, he's one of the most humble, respectable people that I've met. To be honest, he's quite an inspiration. On that film, it felt like he had so much pressure on him, but he also had so much power,
Mm.
and he always would. Whenever he would attend, I was working on the second unit, so main unit usually focus on the actors and the dialogue, etc. Second unit focus on the stunts and the big set
Mm.
pieces, and he would be going between the two units. And whenever he would walk onto our set, it would be quite intimidating, but he would literally sometimes I'll be exiting the studio door. He'd leave the door open for me, or say morning or say afternoon or whatever. He would always try to communicate,
Yeah.
how are you doing or whatever, and just to observe him actually, even when he would get frustrated, for example, it would be so respectable, and just such a privilege to watch, to be honest.
Mm.
Yeah, I guess the Star Wars fan base is a fan base you can't please, and really, to be honest, as of late, and I guess working on that film, just watching him go through that, where he had to like serve the story, but he also had to serve the fan base, and it was kind of crazy. I never want to be under that much pressure in my life, honestly. Yeah.
Well, that big gig's coming for you, man. It's coming. But so as a filmmaker now, so you did all that, that amazing stuff working on with Star Wars and at Neal Street with Sam Mendes and stuff. So how do you prepare yourself for set? I mean, as a filmmaker now, and as you were sort of as at 18 and involved in Neal Street and Lucasfilm Limited.
I guess I prepare in different ways. It's very instinctive. So if I come up with an idea, I would just sort of follow what I'm feeling, I guess. So for example, if I come up with an idea and it reminds me of a different movie, I'll start to think about that movie. I'll start looking at the script. I'll start watching the clips. I'll start like studying the character's journey. So it really comes down to references first, actually, when I start preparing for a movie. So it could be a scene from Manhattan, or a scene from Come and See, or a scene from The Godfather,
Yeah.
or a scene from, most of the time it ends up being the Fellowship of the Ring, the first Lord of the Rings. It's just so embedded in my brain. But
It's a
basically it
masterpiece. It's
starts
a
with
masterpiece.
it's actually a masterpiece. I'm not even gonna say anything else. But like but yeah, so it starts off with references, and then I start having vivid images at the beginning and the end, and sometimes it could just be the beginning, sometimes it could just be the end, or sometimes it could just be like just a scene, and I'm trying to figure out how do I get to that scene, and how do I come out of that scene, and what is the story here? And I guess once I have the story, how I prepare to go on set, which is I think what you were asking,
Mm.
is I like to storyboard. I like to meet up
Yeah.
with and spend a lot of time with all the collaborators and the cast. I like to sit with them one to one, just talk about the characters, talk about the story, and just get to know them a bit better. and then I like to put them all, get them all together, whether it's a Zoom read through or if it's an in-person one, and you can workshop the
Yeah.
script and make it better than what you've templated. Um, and yeah, so it's just like a very organic thing. I guess I'm a very prep heavy person. I like to think that films are actually made in prep and they're captured on set. That's how I feel about it.
Mm.
So the more prep I can do, the more I feel like there is freedom for spontaneity when you're on set. So I like to go in having a very clear vision, and you know things do change, and that they change on set, they change in the edit, and you have to be open to that.
Mm.
Um, in the end, you just have to serve the story.
Oh, amazing. And so that brings on to the next question. It's a good follow-on, which is what are the challenges that you get on set, and like how do you work around them in a way? And like more so now, as you know, you've carved out your own production company and Rosebud and everything now, as commander in chief as you were with Path to Ecstasy and stuff. So how do you, yeah, what are the challenges and how do you sort of go about fixing them?
Yeah, I mean, like filmmaking is just the is literally you're just like the process of film directing, for example, is literally you're just trying to make sure that the film gets made, and in doing so there are so many obstacles and challenges to get over, and that is different day to day. So
Mm.
it could be that a scene isn't working for an actor, and you just have to find that you have to find you have to find that little glimpse of what you're looking for, and that could be an adjustment with the actor, that could be a changing in terms of the blocking, that could be a camera movement, that could be one actor not responding to the other. It could be so many different things, and I guess you just
Mm.
have to sort of be intuitive about that, and be in the moment, and just and because especially if you're the director and you've written the script, you know the script well, and you know what you want. It's just like you have to sort of just observe what's happening in front of you and be like, is this telling the story, and is it being told the way that is right for the story, or right
Mm.
in terms of does it fit the vision almost.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes your expectations are sort of thrown out the window and it's exceeded. People, when you put actors together, or you get incredible talent to work with you, they actually end up doing things that you didn't even think of, and that's the really special thing
Mm.
about working with such artists and stuff in the film industry.
Mm.
um but yeah, there's so many challenges, there's that's just the practical side of directing and working with actors, and just sort of touching on that. And then there is also the production side of it. So, you might lose a permit, or someone doesn't turn up, or now we have this whole thing with COVID. It's just like if one person gets COVID, there's bubbles, and do people turn up on set? And I think it's gotten better now, and it's much more, it's very much going back to like it was.
Yeah.
But I think the COVID side of it just added a whole layer of complications and
Yeah.
difficulty in even getting a film made. Um, and I guess pre-COVID, the things that you already had to worry about were just making sure that everyone gets there on the day, and you have access to everything that you signed up for.
Mm.
And there is always something that gets thrown in your face. I guess one of the example would be like, for example, not a personal example, but like just a general film history example is like, for example, um where Martin Scorsese, he was shooting Goodfellas, and it's that very famous sequence where Ray Liotta goes through the club, and he goes through the kitchen. I guess they didn't. The reason they ended up going through the kitchen and that long take, and that brilliant sequence, which inspired so many films like Boogie Nights, etc. Afterwards, that was actually something that he wasn't intending. It was
Mm.
it was something that came as an accident almost, because they didn't have access to the front entrance, so he had to improvise, and then they had to go around the back, and that is
Wow.
now film history. And actually, it works so well for the story as well. It shows that character at the height of his life almost, and he gets access through the back and doesn't go through the front where everyone else goes through. So I don't know, it just added something, another layer. So sometimes that level of spontaneity can happen when you are given these sorts of obstacles or things that you have to sort of overcome. A personal sort of example would be like on my first film, I had an actress to play the mother, and she was on a Netflix production, and she's basically signed on, and it was just like 3 days before. the filming process for our production, and she basically said to me, she basically called us up and she was like, I'm on a Netflix show, and apparently that she was like, can you send your COVID protocols and to the Netflix production? We sent it to them. They said, you guys have done the best you can, but we can't risk our actor catching COVID on your set and then coming on to our set afterwards,
Mm,
because you'll be the ones getting in trouble.
mm.
And that production was like millions of pounds, and our production was this little small indie with a couple of bucks. And we couldn't risk it. We couldn't do it in the end.
Yeah.
She had to pull out and we had to find someone else. And that was like a last minute sort of challenge to overcome. And yeah, so the whole process is just overcoming challenges and making it work. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of you've answered sort of my next question really, which was like life on set, and I mean, I suppose like there is one aspect of it. So for anyone who hasn't been on a set before, how would you sort of describe it anyway? You probably answered it already, but if there's anything else you could describe life on a set by exactly.
Yeah, it's just a community. It's a brilliant thing. People are coming together and trying to create art.
Mm,
And I've been on sets where people are really motivated and they know they're part of something special. And I've been on sets where people don't like the script and they don't like the team, and they don't quite vibe together and they
mm,
can't wait to go home. And it's mostly it's the first sort of people just love being in films. That's why they do what they do. I think when the latter sort of outcome happens, that's usually down to um I guess just a lack of vision. And so it's just, I guess film sets are just full of very cool people, artists, and they just, yeah, it's a very special place. And
mm,
you can sort of, you have the camera team, and around the camera team, you have like a layers of other departments. You have the props standby, they're standing by, ready to hand the lightsaber or the weapon or whatever else it is, and then you have like the electricians and the sparks, and the camera electric department is a quite big department, so it has grips who move the camera. You have hair and makeup, costume, all standing by, ready to go in, and on set you have special effects. These are all different types of departments and people just sort of standing by, ready to do their jobs, and to make the movie. And then also outside of set, you have hundreds and thousands of people sometimes, um, and they are sort of creating the costumes, they're prepping the special effects and testing those things, and they are setting up the next the for example, the lighting team, they half of the team or most of the team might be in the next location setting up and rigging and
mm.
creating yeah, setting that up for the next week or the next day. So it's such a big collaboration and so many people
Yeah.
involved. And yeah, if you're starting out and you're going on this set, there's just so many incredible people that you can meet and get to know and learn so
Mm.
much from.
Yeah, it's exciting. I remember being on your set in Guildford in the nightclub and everything, and it's just that the hustle and bustle of it. I find it really, really exciting. Everyone like working together to make the same thing, and you're looking around and there's constantly something happening, and it's really great. So that's sort of the I suppose the bones of a film, and then comes like the adding, the fleshing it out really, which is in post production in the editing room. I've made a short film last year, and the editing part I found to be the most stressful and the most really kind of tedious. And you think you're done, and then there's a shot which doesn't quite work, and then you have to go back and change it, and it's like, oh, it's a tedious process. But
Yeah.
so what's been your experience of editing rooms, and what can you tell people about what happens in that process of finalizing it and all cutting it together?
hmm I guess editing is something I really enjoy actually. It's actually the first thing I wanted to do when I joined when I was sort of looking to go into the industry when I was around 16. Is the first way in for me was editing, and then
Mm,
I ended up producing, and then I organically ended up being a director. But I've always had a thing for how sound and visuals cut together and how you can sort of structure them in terms of rhythm and timing, and how that could give you a different emotional response, especially with people responding to the image and the sound. If you just do a slight adjustment, it can have a totally different sort of you know results in terms of how people perceive it. And I guess it's such a balance in trying to find that. And I guess as a film lover and a viewer of film, um, I've sort of learnt a subconscious thing when it comes to how things are cut and how timing and rhythm and stuff like that. But in
Mm,
terms of the process of editing, I guess to answer your question, I really look forward to it. I really enjoy it. It is very stressful at first, especially on my last few shorts, the first and the second short I did as a director. It was like you have a very clear idea and you think you're going to get that, and then you end up getting something slightly different, and you have to sort of accept that and come to terms with that. And then it takes a little while to get to a point where you're comfortable with what you have. And then when you are getting to that point, you just
mm,
have to serve the story. You have to change things, get rid of things that you thought were going to work don't actually work, new things. If you're on set and you were being spontaneous and you tried to get a little bit extra coverage of different things,
mm,
um you can end up changing the film and making it better in some ways.
mm,
One thing I'm learning is that when you're in the writing stage, you try to write more. And I'm someone who actually tries to make it quite tight when I'm script writing. I'm quite brutal. I try to just be like, okay, what is it because I try to visualize it. I'm like, okay, this is how it's going to cut. This is how the sound's going to play out. And I go into it with a very clear vision. But then in the edit, I realized that it just needs to be tighter. It needs to be faster. It's not actually what it's like you go in with a vision, and sometimes that vision doesn't have the right pacing. It's actually not the right,
mm,
it's not actually, people are not going to be engaged, so you have to then change that up in the edit. So it's actually quite an exciting process in
mm,
in terms of trying to find your movie. What is your movie? um so I do really enjoy the editorial process. Yeah, it is very stressful, but you have so much time to think about the movie and try to find what you need. And also, if you're struggling and didn't get everything you wanted, there is always the possibility of a pickup day depending on your budget. So you can leave those gaps. I usually stick storyboards in for the things I still need.
yeah.
Lottie Brocklesby, who's also one of the cast members in Party Ecstacy, but she has worked with me on the last few shorts and even the ones I produced. Um, we usually sit down and we just do storyboards for everything, and then if we have a pickup day, she also does those, and I just stick them into the edit sequence, and it gives you a really solid idea of how it's going to cut together. And
Mm,
even before going into the movie, I storyboard everything, and I go on location, and I start with storyboards, and then I go on location and I start taking actual images with people standing or moving or doing things in the positions I feel like the actors are going to end up instinctively walking into.
mm,
And then I just sort of cut this whole thing together, and I get the composer to do like a little soundtrack for it, a little template, and then just getting a sense of what this film is going to be. And I might share it with some of the collaborators so they know what we're about to make. And if they have any thoughts or they think something doesn't work or they need something, we might need extra coverage, extra footage, then they can say something then. And that's really worked well for me, this process so far. Yeah.
mm. Amazing, man. So let's get on and talk about some of your films that you've made so far. We'll start with with the first short film that you made, which was Find the Light, which starred George Mackay and Seema Bowery, and which I've seen. And I think it's a really, really beautiful film, and it's a really, really good insight into current events and to how the tricky question of like fitting in a way and finding the light in yourself, so you don't let bad people sort of destroy it in a way. Would that be a fair way of looking at it?
Yeah, it is about, isolation and and I guess I wouldn't say they're bad people. I think when you're young, people fear what they don't understand.
Yeah.
And I guess, a lot of those people now, I don't like I firstly to say that Find the Light is very personal for me, and it's very much based on a point in my childhood.
Mm,
And I guess for me, even writing the script, it was very therapeutic of just trying to make something, because I really wanted to make a movie, but I just wanted to sort of address things I hadn't really addressed, I guess.
mm,
Um and that involved a lot of reflection. And what I was trying to say was that some of those people that sort of inspired some of those characters that aren't very nice to the protagonist, or bullied the protagonist and sort of chanted racist, you know, things at him. They're, those people in reality, I don't really have anything against them at this point. And, you know,
Mm.
I, they're also 13, 14, 15, 16, and they're also brought up in a certain environment where people are a certain way. And I guess
Yeah.
they're also learning. And also, let me give you this example, right?
Yeah.
When I was directing the opening section of Find the Light, where the bullies sort of um the bullies sort of are chasing the young boy. They're chasing the camera. I went up to the cameraman and I said, you know, this is how we're gonna do it. You're gonna be struggling. You're gonna be running. You're the victim. Blah 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 blah. So, and then same with the protagonist. When in other scenes, I basically told him where his headspace is, what's happening, how he's being bullied, you know, whatever else, what's happening in his private life, all sorts of stuff. But when I was with the bullies and the antagonists, um I was also giving their perspective. I was saying, listen, this guy doesn't listen to you. He's incredibly weird. And I was just pretty much going all out and really taking their side because they
Mm.
also have a perspective. It's not to say who is right or who is wrong. That is very clear, but there is always a point of view from both sides, and there's a reason people do things. So that was really important for me. So that's just addressing the, you know, the thing you said, bad people or something. So I was just like, but in terms of the general film, the film is very personal and an incredible learning experience
Mm.
for my first film, and I just wanted to put something together. So I'm really grateful. There's people like my producer who Lucas Ferrara, who believed in the project,
Mm.
and I remember pitching it to him, and he was a big part of making it a reality. And then people like George Mackay, who
Mm.
um who also, you know, to do a film like to do a film by someone who's never made a movie, and also not an incredibly big role, but for me very crucial role. And he just loved the script and he read it, and I'm so grateful to him for doing the movie.
Mm.
But also just all the other collaborators and stuff as well, you know, even people who I might not continue to work with, to be involved and to make the movie was a big thing. For them to believe in me and even help me in making the movie. So yeah, there's quite a lot of people I would
Mm.
would thank for that first experience. But most importantly, I'm so grateful to have just made something and learned so much from it. And
Yeah.
yeah, for me, it's like the beginning of everything. But like I might have said that earlier for that Star Wars as well, but that's like my journey in film. But this is more my journey in directing. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. And so then that's a good lead into the main thing I think for today, which is your upcoming second short film, which is Path to Ecstasy, which is about I'll let you do the explaining. I wasn't very good at it just now, but yeah, it's something that we worked on together. We shot it in a nightclub in Guildford Casino over a weekend, and I came back again for some pickup shots and stuff. It was a real it was a real great experience, I think, from someone who was involved in the project. I think it was really all the hustle and bustle of it, really, and as well because it takes place in a nightclub, and I think we started shooting at like 10 or 11 in the morning. You know, we were getting dressed up in our nightclub best, walking to the nightclub at 10 o'clock in the morning. I was like, what's going on? It's very new.
All
So
a
yeah,
bunch of weirdos turning up, going early morning. I don't know, but it was like 10 a.m., right? All
yeah, it
dressed
was, yeah,
up, turning up. People on the street are just like, what is wrong with these people?
yeah.
But yeah,
It's
we
like,
were
wow.
inviting them. We were saying we need more extras. Come and join us.
They're probably thinking, wow, they've had a good night. Jesus, no, it's still going.
I
It's
don't think
crazy.
they were thinking that, but yeah.
Well, that's the positive one anyway. But so yeah, tell us about that. What people can expect from your next short film, Path to Ecstasy.
Yeah, so Party Ecstacy is about a young boy who is neglected or kicked out of home by his stepfather. And then he goes on a journey of sort of self-discovery, but he's trying to leave this group, and he's also searching for love, and he's also trying to let go of drugs. And there's a lot going on with this character. It's about this young boy's struggle, personal struggles, but also his search for love, and And yeah, so that's sort of past to Ecstacy, is trying to find that sense of fulfillment.
Of
and
course.
and yeah, so it's a film which we've just recently finished, so that's very exciting. It's been such a long time. I basically came up with the idea in October of 2021, and then we finished it, I guess, in February of 2023. So it's been a long
Wow.
process and getting it made, but it's also so exciting. A few close friends of mine have seen it, and a few people in the industry, and yeah, it's so great to see that people are resonating with it.
Mm.
And it's about the spiking epidemic, to be honest. In terms of there is that centered relationship between a father and a stepfather and a stepson, but it is also sort of commenting on um, youth culture today and in clubs, and how easy it is for people to get spiked, and how one takes advantage of another. And and yeah, so sort of bringing light onto that,
Mm.
whilst also being hopefully an incredibly entertaining ride for people. I wanted to make something which was very different to my first film. So my first film was quite dialogue heavy, not dialogue heavy, sorry, it was very visual and sort of subtle and quiet. And then this film, I wanted to quite do the opposite, which was make a dialogue heavy film, and with lots of characters. Instead of one lead, try to have two leads, and sort of play with lots of different things, and play with the supernatural, but also play with reality, and
Mm.
submerge the two. And I guess in Find the Light we did a little bit of that with the dream world and the real world, but this
Yeah.
film, yeah, sort of goes into supernatural territory. Yeah, it's just something I'm so excited for people to see. In terms of how I came up with the idea, it all really started with this one image, which is, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's pretty much, I don't want to get the context or anything like that, but it's pretty
Yeah.
much about a miserable individual sort of holding his head, sitting at a table, and then the camera pushes in and finds this person. Yeah, and I'm not going to say anything else,
Yeah.
but that was the starting point. And then I was like, how do we get to this point? And that was a very organic process in just finding the movie. And yeah, so that was the journey in trying to come up with the idea with that, and
Mm.
a little bit about what it's about. I actually have not talked to people about I've not had to explain what it's about yet, so this is quite interesting. Yeah.
No, I think people are really gonna love it. I mean, I'm excited about it. I mean, it was great to be a part of it as well. So in terms of like the experience you had, because Find the Light was your first film of you, taking the reins and actually going for it. When you come back to taking the reins again for a second time, how does it feel? So how did Path to Ecstasy feel creating that compared to Find the Light?
Yeah, I mean, each film is a stepping stone. Especially short films. They're a place to learn and experiment and try things. And um, I guess in some ways it was easier, but in some ways it was more difficult. So
Mm.
I found it much easier to direct actors on this second film,
Hmm.
and I felt like I knew my process much better, and and other things were more difficult, like trying to get the camera language correct, and getting my vision across and stuff like that. And it was a little bit of a chaotic experience. But one thing I learned, which is give yourself more time. So
Hmm.
we did have to slice things on the day and stuff like that, which is fine. But it's also sometimes, if you plan a schedule better, you can give yourself more time and try to get as much as possible. But looking at the final product, I don't really it's not, I don't really regret it, because I'm like, oh, this actually works. We ended up, so it is sort of just trying to come to terms with, you have a certain vision, what happens on the set happens on the set, and then in post-production you have what you have, and you kind of just need to make
Mm.
it work. And I'm really glad it's a piece which people are resonating with, because it's very difficult for me to sort of step away from what I initially had in mind. So it's like, so yeah, it's an incredible learning experience, and it was so fun to work with so many different people and artists again. And yeah, lots of lessons learned as well. So going into my third and final short, which I'm working on now, I'm going to try and do a lot of things differently, but
Great.
also keep a lot of things the same. And that is something I'm really looking forward to. So yeah, each project it's its own sort of special thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
So where will people be able to access it when it's available?
Well, hopefully, I'm hoping that we can release a trailer in a couple of weeks, or very soon, and we're just waiting on a confirmation for that. And then after that, I'm hoping we can release it into festivals and worldwide, and then after it's played in festivals worldwide, we can release it online for people to engage with and watch whenever they
Yes.
want. And so it's gonna have to go through that usual short film circuit journey.
Cool.
Um, but yeah, it should be available for people in London to watch at some point. I will be sharing it on my Rosebud Films sort of social media stuff if we ever have a screening or whatever.
Mm.
But it's very exciting. People will be able to watch it, I'm sure. There's always like online links at some of these festivals as well. They have their main screenings in person, but then they also some of them they do put it online, and if you subscribe to their festival, then you can watch it.
Mm. Fantastic.
Mm.
I think I think it's going to be a great thing for everyone. I think, and you know, your work's just going to keep getting better now. And I think so. Obviously, you're in pre-production for
One
your
second,
next.
just to cut you. You were incredible in the film, by the way. Like
Oh
it was just like it was very cool to, and lots of your peers as well from the from the drama school. They were just
yeah,
yeah, brilliant and just so cool to watch. And you guys are so like motivated and
yeah.
inspiring for me. And it was just like I just wanted to. It was also so difficult because we had to. We didn't have that many extras, and we just had to keep using you guys. And luckily, I feel like in the film we've hidden you guys, so it's like you can't really like you. We can spot you obviously when you're on screen, but
Yeah.
when we're reusing you, it doesn't actually like it's not obvious that it's you. So it looks like it's a busy club, which is great. But yeah, you guys are absolute legends. So thank you for doing the film as well. It was a genuine honor. Yeah.
I know. Thank you for the call out. Thank you for asking us to do it. I think I can't speak for everyone, but it was just so nice to be. I mean, I've done a few extras jobs on Silent Witness and EastEnders and stuff like that, and um, that experience. Yeah, it was nice being on set, but actually being on your set, I felt really included, and I felt really engaged with the project, and that's a testament to your. You mentioned that word earlier, community as well. How you created this bond, I think, with everyone. Everyone felt like they were in touch, and everyone felt important in a way. That was my perspective of it. I'm sure others would say the same thing, but yeah, but it was a really lovely set that you create, man. And I think, I think a great set means great work, which you do anyway. So that's great.
Oh, thank you, Oliver. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I can't make a movie without people like you and Mike Jibson and all sorts of people working behind the scenes. So yeah, I owe it to everyone else. So yeah, thank you for being involved on it.
Oh no, the pleasure was all mine, man. Pleasure was all mine. So obviously you mentioned you've got your next short film in pre-production already. Obviously, we're not going to ask too many details about that because that's up for your creative mind. So going into your third and potentially your final short, what do you think are you are you thinking, okay, I know exactly what to do now? I mean, I'm ready to go, or is there still some things that you'd like to sort of have a look at again that maybe you haven't looked at before, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of projects in the works. I mean, I mentioned I'm doing a final short film. I just want to sort of everything I've learned from the first film, two films. I want to just sort of do a third film and put everything into it and just see how that works out. And the third film is set. I could say a few things. It's set in a cinema. It's called Screening Room, and it's going to be about. Yeah, it's going to be a sort of a film about human connection and two
Mm,
people meeting each other in a cinema, two random strangers, film goers, and yeah. So there's. I'm currently in a stage where I've written the script. I'm redrafting it currently, and I'm going to start approaching collaborators and stuff for all that. So
amazing.
it's very exciting, yeah.
Great.
And hopefully something we can shoot later in the year. And then I've got two feature films which I'm also sort of very much in the middle of in terms of their journeys. There's one that's a very personal film called Far From Home, which is about a young boy who is sort of trying to come back to his home country and his mother. And then I've also got a film which is probably going to be my first feature, fingers crossed, which is a
Mhm.
horror, and it's about a young man who escapes an occult sacrifice and then goes on a journey to find his loved ones. So so yeah, those are kind of the things I'm working on at the moment, to talk about them very briefly.
Yeah.
Uh, but but yeah, so there's lots to have. It's really cool to get part of Ecstasy done, and then these other projects which have been really working, their way through. I can now focus on them.
Great.
Yeah.
And you mentioned there about, projects being done. I think another question for today was, how do you know when a film's done in a way? Because we mentioned earlier about the editing process. Of, I imagine, from my point, we were constantly nitpicking. I don't know if you had that experience as well, but you're constantly looking at it and you think you've got it, and then you realize one shot isn't quite what you want. So this might be a bit of a self-explanatory question in a way, but how do you know when a film's done? Is it simply just a case of there's nothing more I can do with this film? It's perfect just the way it is.
It's a really good question. Actually, what you've just said at the end is pretty much what it is. Like, it's just like you work on it so much. You've seen it so many times. You asked so many, hopefully, like you've asked enough opinions that people have sort of run out of things to say. And then you're kind of in a place where you're like, okay, the trusted people who usually give me their opinions and usually have a really strong points that I mean, everyone's points valid, but like I usually have a close circle around me who read my scripts and then watch my edits, and then they can sort of give me those brutal points and with no bias involved. And it's just,
Hmm.
there's always bias involved, but you know what I'm trying to say. And then it's just like I can address those and then whatever. But yeah, I mean, you get to a point where you work on a film for so long and get to a point where something is telling the story, and then you leave it for a couple of weeks because other people are working on it, whether it's visual effects or sound design or whatever, because you've done the edit, and then you come back to it, and then you come back to it again because you have to do the color grade or whatever, and you watch it, and when it starts to feel right, there's always, by the way, like even during those processes, and some of my collaborators get very frustrated because it's like I keep going back. I'm like, oh no, there's like a millisecond, or because I'm very like specific. I don't like to do, oh yeah, 1 second or like 3 seconds, or oh that I don't know, sure about that, or like I pretty much change everything to the detail if I can. So that I firstly I'm satisfied with what's in front of me, and
Hmm.
then I hope that people that watch it are also satisfied. And then when they run out of notes, then I get to a point where I'm like, the film's done. That's it. And then if someone gives me a note like a few weeks after we've locked, I'm like, no, man, we can't do
No.
anything anymore. It is what it is. Enjoy the movie,
Yeah,
criticize
I just want
it,
to
love
enjoy
it,
it now.
whatever you want. Yeah. So you do have to get to a point where you have to put your foot down and be like, it's finished.
Yeah,
Again, I'm
of
going to
course.
give you a Scorsese thing, which is like Goodfellas finished. I think they were at the premiere of Goodfellas or something, and then he's sitting in the front row with Nicholas Pileggi, who wrote the script or the book,
Mm.
and he's basically talking about what he wants to change or something. He's like, oh, that went on for too long, something like that. And then Nick Pileggi is just like, listen, Marty is done. Like, I mean, enjoy it. Like it's over. And then he just has to lean back and just enjoy the rest of the movie. So it's like, I just think it's like a thing where like directors maybe never feel like they finished their film until it's finished and
Yeah,
they can't do anything about it.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm a bit scared, like in the future when like you have like a Warner Brothers or a Universal or like big production companies that are like, listen, you've got 2 weeks to edit this or whatever, and
Two
then you got to
weeks.
do anything again. Yeah, you got like no time, and then it's just like you have deadlines because post production is actually very expensive, obviously,
Yeah,
because there's so many people working, and you have to just get things done in a particular time frame. Otherwise, it costs more money. So
yeah,
the one thing I do is I do like to edit my own films at I like to sit in a room with an editor, and then we go through it together and mutually edit the film. And then I do spend a lot of time alone I used to have it on my laptop, and I just go through the movie over and over again, and just
yeah.
so so I do have that creative control to change it whenever. I don't know if that's going to be taken away from me in the future, but hopefully not. I heard Steven Soderbergh edits his own film, so let's see what happens.
That's a good thing. I think I don't know if you do this, but with the case of Find the Light and Path to Ecstasy, did you create like did you make like a really rough cut to begin with, like start to finish? So you had a film in a way, but it was a rough cut, and then you made all the changes, or did you piece it together scene by scene and then get to the end and then refine?
That's really cool that you asked that question, actually, because there's always like, I think a lot of people like, okay, I'm actually still deciding this. I don't know what I did so far. I think on the first film there was a rough assembly, but it was so like not what I wanted. So it was
Yeah,
actually like I was like, oh my God, this is so tough. And also the music that was yeah, let's not go into that. And then the second film. I guess there was like a rough thing together, but I asked not to watch it. I said, let's just go through it scene by scene by scene.
Yeah.
I think going forward, I will get someone on board, like someone who I can work with long term, and then they can do an assembly. I'm not sure if I need to watch the assembly, but they could be a reference for them. And every time we go through a scene, I could just look at their assembly. Yeah, actually, I think my process is going to be that for each scene there is a cut up sequence. If you have a few different shots, they can cut it up and see what works. But and then I do just want to go through it scene by scene by scene. I don't want to see what happens at the end or anything like that. I don't want to think about that right now.
Mm.
I think the only time it's important is if you need to know if there's going to be a pickup day or something. You know, if you need to know, are we going to do additional photography? Then you do need to get your editor, or you need to sit down and be like, what do we have here? And you have to judge it, and you have to cut it together and maybe do like a rough assembly and be like, okay, this certain scenes missing or certain things aren't working. This is what we need to do. I guess from that standpoint, a rough assembly is cool and important and whatever.
Mm.
But in terms of how I like to work, scene by scene by scene, one thing
Yeah.
at a time.
Good
Yeah.
stuff. And I think just got a couple more questions for you today, man. One I think is really interesting is color grading. And again, it's another experience I had with my short film last year, you know, finding the way of, you know, and I think it's good to know, like, if you shoot a film or a scene and it's too bright, but there is a way in post to actually nullify that brightness to actually make it look like, you know, what you want essentially. So what are the basics of color grading and how has it helped you in your editing processes?
Yeah, I mean, like I've just learned so much about grading on the last two shorts. Before that, even the short before I did, which I produced, Slave to the Page, the I don't know anything about, you know, color and lighting and all this sort of stuff. I would say I pretty much don't know anything. I'm so interested in that world because I need to have a better understanding in order to communicate what I need and want. So I've been sitting in the color grading sessions, and you know, I'm a brilliant colorist on the last film, Felipe, and then on this film, Max Ferguson Hook, who
Mm,
basically graded the movie, and it looks so brilliant. I had to
mm,
sort of just learn to articulate shadows and exposure and lights and picking out certain things and creating vignettes and all that sort of stuff. It was just I was sort of learning as I was just asking questions and learning as I was
mm.
watching him and Felipe on the last film. And I guess it's just yeah, there is so much you can do. Like it's technology has come such a long way. It's so brilliant. Like Peter Jackson just restored Lord of the Rings trilogy on 4K, and it went from like certain scenes looking really blue and dark to like now looking green and blue and quite bright. And like I've got it on 4K and I'm watching it, you know, watching on my setup sometimes, and it's just like wow, like he's pretty much like I have those images locked in my head from childhood, so I know what they actually look like. I don't even
Mhm.
need to get the DVD. I know what it looks like, and it and he's changed it. He's transformed it, and he probably just had so much more. He you know the 4K restoration probably opportunity for him to just play with the colors and get it closest to what he really wanted. And
Mm.
maybe that technology wasn't available back in those days. So
Yeah.
yeah, when you've got your footage and you've got your assembly and you go to the and work with the colorist, there's so much you can do. And sometimes when you're watching log footage for a very long time, like just how you shot it, basically, if you and you're editing like that, you see a film a certain way, and then you work with the colorist, and you kind of lose things sometimes. You're watching and like, no, 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 no. I remember looking in his eyes at that moment, and I really felt something. Oh, I can't really see him doing that anymore. Da, da, da. So you have to just sort of find a balance. They might go a bit too far, a little bit with the grade, and you have to bring it back
Mm.
not bring it back to the log. The log is just something you don't want to see because it's just the way you captured it, and you obviously
Yeah.
need the grade on it. But it's just like you don't want to lose things that you captured. So it's I like editing with log footage because then I know all the things we have. I was like, okay, even though this doesn't look like a movie right now, it just looks like footage. It does. I do know what we've got. So when we're in the grade, the colorist has applied his stuff and he's focusing on the look and the cinematography, and I'm focusing on everything. That as well as am I losing in you know Mike Jibson's emotion in that moment, or Louis the way Louis looking in a certain direction, or you know George Mackay how yellow his top is or whatever it is. It's like you have to address all these things and you have to tone things down and you have to. So yeah, it is its own artistry. Honestly, there's so much you can do with that.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. I can't wait to learn more as I keep making movies and get more and more specific with it.
Mm.
But as it stands, is very exciting where we've ended up with, especially with grading. Yeah.
Amazing. I think it sounds so cool, like all the elements behind the camera or in the
Mhm.
editing room afterwards. I
But I
need to
do have to
definitely.
say there is only so much you can do. So at times, like like
Okay.
you say, can you increase the lighting? I think it was one of the things you said, and I was like, I did ask that sometimes, and it doesn't do what you want because there's only so much details that a camera can capture sometimes, and you
Hmm.
might have done it a certain way on the day. You can manipulate that, but you don't want to go. Sometimes the colorist or the cinematographer just be like, you can't do that. It's going to look too pale, or it's going to sort of take the audience out. And
Hmm.
the main thing about, I guess, filmmaking is like you don't want the audience to know what you're doing, and and it needs to be seamless. So for me, it's all that's why when I'm saying it's too extreme, I don't want it to be too extreme because I want the audience not to feel like it's too extreme, and I just want them to follow the story and nothing distracting them too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to add that there are limitations as well.
Yeah, I'm just quickly. I'm curious to know about. Obviously, as you say, technology has come a long way. You know, Peter Jackson's updating his stuff at the moment. Is there anything in the editing or technical side of things that you're not able to do yet? No, not as in like a restriction on your own talent or anything, but is there a piece of equipment or a piece of technical ability which is not available yet that you think you would like to have access to, if that makes sense? Is it anything that technology can't do at the moment for filmmakers?
I honestly am like just at the point where I'm still discovering things because there's so
Mm.
much. So I wouldn't say, I think we're in the opposite side where there's too much,
Okay.
And also it's really exciting these virtual sets now where like you can
Mm.
literally film on location and grab that. I believe that, and then they stick it into the system, and then it pretty much creates a VR. Or they maybe make it from scratch. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure they get the footage on these very high res cameras, and then they they get a 360 thing, and then they put it. And then they have actors and stuff standing in these virtual studios, and like the Mandalorian, for example. I don't really, to be honest, I don't know how they do it
Mm.
at this stage, but they do use these virtual sets, and I do think they are the future because they just look incredible. It genuinely looks real. Like I don't know
Mm.
because the if you change a camera angle, the lighting can be adjusted so easily and stuff like that. So it actually saves you so much time. It's so efficient, and I think the actors. I haven't spoken to an actor about it, but I think it works for them because they are seeing the set. It's not a green screen,
Yeah, yeah.
it's the set. So it's they can put themselves there. I'm sure it must be easier. It might be a nice middle ground, I guess, between actually being there or a green screen.
Mm.
Um, and then other things like VR. Like
Yeah.
I genuinely, yeah, I don't know how I feel about it because I always thought there was such a poetry to just watching a film for 2 hours, not a mini series or a series, or just 2 hour movie, which you know doesn't tell you a man's entire life, woman's entire life, or a person's entire life, but it kind of leaves the impression of one, which I think I've just stolen a quote from a film called Mank, which is about the creation of Citizen Kane. But basically, yeah, it kind of leaves the impression, and I just love the poetry of that. And you can fill in the blanks, so you can resonate with it from your own life or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting to a point now where there's so much content and there's a lack of subtlety. And also VR is basically we're getting into video game, film and video game are like connecting, and it's becoming this new thing. And even The Last of Us being this incredibly immersive video game now turned into a series, it's just a matter of time before these things start submerging. When I was younger, I used to play the Modern Warfare games, and even them, they just had incredible storylines, and they were
Yeah.
so fun to play.
It's so
And
good.
just the betrayal and the story and all sorts of stuff, like and then also just there's some iconic images like him throwing the knife and it landing in the eye as like the final thing in Modern Warfare 2. And also the
Oh,
music was done by Hans Zimmer. There's just some crazy stuff in that, even Grand Theft Auto and stuff like that. So it's like it's always, there's always been, especially in the 21st century, there's always been like a movement towards games with storylines. But yeah, to answer your question very simply, I don't know where we're going, and I don't know if I'm excited about it because I love the old cinema of the 20th century, the 70s and the 80s especially, and the
mm.
60s and the 50s and the 40s. But But yeah, even the 2000s was cool, man. There'll Be Blood and The Dark
Yeah,
Knight and Lord of the Rings films and whatever. But it's just like,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know where we're going, man. So I'm really just sort of sitting back, and I'm going to be hopefully making movies during this time. And I'm just like, what is the appetite of the audience? I
Mm,
don't know. I think it keeps changing. I don't think we've found. I don't think. I don't think we've quite found what people want right now. I do think I was hoping it was going to be James Cameron with his new Avatar film, where he just does something that we weren't expecting.
yeah,
What he did was he just made like he pushed the visual effects further than it's ever been pushed. So the
yeah,
visual effects in Avatar, The Way of Water, are just incredible, like groundbreaking, incredible. Like
yeah.
everything
Stunning.
just looks real. Um, I wasn't a massive fan, but I'm a big supporter. I'm not a massive fan of the film, but I'm a big supporter of James Cameron and what he's doing, and very happy to contribute to its box office. But it still hasn't happened. I think we're waiting for a film or a production or something to just push the whole thing in a new direction.
Mm.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing that. To seeing that, I wonder if we'll ever get the answer to that. Will we ever find out? You know?
We will. It's just a matter of time. Honestly, I can just feel it. It's gonna be a movie which is almost like a video game or something like that. You put on your VR headset and you'll have lots of different options of where the story could go, and then people will just play it over and over again or watch the movie over and over again. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just guess gaming here, but like who knows? You
Like
know,
the
who might be, and the
possibilities.
reason people go to the cinema is because when it rains, it rains. When it's sun, they'll stick a heater on top. Who knows that? I don't know. You know, like it's going to be an immersive thing. I think we're going
I think
towards, and
so.
there'll be like people like me who will just keep going to those indie cinemas and trying to watch old movies, trying to remember what it used to be like. I don't know,
Yeah.
honestly.
Who
Um,
knows? The possibilities, man, they're going to be endless. So
yeah,
just got two more questions for you today, man. And thanks so much again for coming on. I really appreciate it. Preparation. Oh yeah. So just going back to your work, Find the Light and Path Ecstasy as well. So obviously, you've worked with great actors, Mike Jibson, Louie Serkis, George Mackay. It's like and of course as actors, we want to, we prepare for the roles, like you prepared to shoot, we prepared to do the character. Is there anything in particular you want your actors to have prepared ready? Obviously learn your lines, of course, but is there anything additional you would like them to have already prepared for you before they come on set?
yeah. I mean, we'd probably have a discussion about it. It's different for each actor, but it's just like I guess just I guess the main thing is just ask me any question and ask me before the film. Like it's great to ask things on the day, but I can really take my time and explain things earlier and we can discover the character. And that's a very mutual process. And just learning your lines, just basics. I'm pretty sure most people do that. I've never had an issue with that before.
Hmm.
And then on the day, if there's an issue or problem, we just deal with it together. But
Hmm.
yeah, I guess in terms of like actors, I already think they do a lot, to be honest. Everyone I've worked with, I've
Hmm.
been really proud to work with them and they've given it their all. So yeah, I don't know, that's their artistry. So
Right.
as long as they're on the day and we're getting what we need to tell the story, I'm happy. So
Right.
uh, and in prep, we'll just do the usual things. We'll meet up, we'll talk about it, whatever, and then we'll address anything that they need to prep or do. And usually I like to give actors sometimes I like to give them music to get them into a certain headspace, or I like to give them references to other films. I make a list for them, and
Hmm.
sometimes that could be about. Sometimes you have to be really careful with that, but I do. That could be about what the character likes or enjoys, so like a little. But it could also be what could get them into the headspace for the character or for the film. So
Yeah.
you know, Schindler's List is a good one if you're about to work on Find the Light because it's just a certain vibe because it gives you a little bit of hope, but at the same time it's a very depressing watch. And I remember giving that to the young actor on the first film. I wasn't sure if he was going to be allowed to watch it, but I think he did watch it with his family or whatever. But it's just like I just
Yeah.
give people things like that. And then for this film, I think I said Enter the Void, which is a film like a very like
Hmm.
perspective film, or orange yellow colors about someone who takes drugs and then they go through this lucid experience. And yeah, it just had like a vibe. Gaspar Noé was big influence, I guess, on this film and part of Ecstasy, and his just like yeah, the way he sees the world. And so yeah, it could be whatever, to be honest.
Hmm.
Depends on the project, depends on the person.
Yeah. It's great.
Mm.
And so in terms of what is given you already, like the whole process of filmmaking, and I think you've mentioned today about one thing you change is to give yourself more time and allow yourself to have, you know, more of it, and sort of not sort of feel pressured by it in a way. Do you think? So just sort of my second to last question really is, what so far in your career, what has filmmaking given you, and what has it taken away? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, filmmaking is a commitment. So on when I was starting out, I was dedicating 7 days a week, so I was working all the time.
Yeah.
My job was only 5 days a week, but I wanted to just be on set, so I networked and I sort of made sure that I was working even on my weekends and etc. And then
Mm.
some jobs I was working on, the weekends you were working, and the new weekend was Tuesdays and Wednesdays, so people had to adapt to that. So what I'm trying to say is like it is very much a commitment and it kind of controls your life in a way. And depending on what you're doing, if you're working in house and you're whatever, it's just a 9 to 5. Sometimes you stay a few hours extra or whatever. And I don't speak for everyone. I'm just speaking for the role I had.
Mm.
And it's just like you, yeah, you have more flexibility when you're working on set. There's overtime. You stay late. You turn up hours early. I always used to turn up maybe 2 hours before call time before
Oh wow.
so you get your boss breakfast and you get yourself breakfast, you get yourself ready or whatever.
Mm.
Especially when I was starting out, that was the way it was. And even if you have to do anything for your boss and you're your own boss, you want to be there an hour early.
Mm.
I think I read yesterday. I heard Spielberg talking about him and Tom Cruise just turning up on set before everyone else and just standing there and talking through what's going to happen during the day. I think they worked on Minority Report and War of the Worlds, and that was the way they worked together. So
Mm.
professionals, that's what they do. They want to be there, they want to be planned, they want to be ready. And what I'm trying to say is what it gives you is so much. It gives you a family, it gives you, it gives you you're telling stories. It's like a dream job. People love to be a part of it. I've Films have helped me survive all my life. They've given me
Mm.
so much, and
Yeah.
I've never felt alone because of film. And I guess so it gives me everything in a way. It's my job, it's my passion, it's what I love. And it gives you friends and so much to look forward to. And then at the same time, what it takes away from you, it takes away your time. It takes away
Yeah.
that if you have other hobbies and stuff, you might not be able to invest in them as much. And so it is a real commitment, and it's not for everyone. For me, it's like I can't imagine myself doing anything else. And it's a dream that this is even becoming a reality.
Mm.
But yeah, for a lot of people, it might be too much and too intense.
Mm.
And but yeah, it's each to their own, to be honest. And a lot of other industries are also incredibly intense, like film. So it's not to say that film is like this thing and everyone else is
Yeah, of
having a
course.
joyride. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it really depends. Um, but it's definitely something very special to be a part of.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
And just finally, today, man, what would you say has been an experience you've had in your career up to this point that you're never ever going to forget? Do you think?
So many different things. It's
Yeah,
like, yeah, it's like
there's quite a few, I would imagine.
yeah, there's so many, stepping on that set on Find the Light the first day and having my little actor's dictionary and just sitting there and people turning up an hour late because they didn't know where the location was. And I'm thinking, oh, is this film even going to be made? And what's going on? And then just stepping on that set and having this internal feeling, which until today, I'm just like, wow, like that was the moment I realized that this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. That is never going to, that experience is never going to disappear. I'm never going to forget it, that first movie. And then also the second movie, but also just like working on those sets, like 1917 or, when George does that famous run now, we were there on that day. It was like a cloud of ashes and smoke or whatever it
Yeah.
was, like, descending on us and we had to do these resets. But when he fell and the extra bumped into him, I remember just watching it live and I was like, no, 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 all cheering, like, get up, George, come on, come on. And then like, And then at the same time, like I remember standing at the monitor and we did like a couple of takes, and I was like, me and like the crew were just like, that has to be the one. That has to be the one because it's just
Mm.
like that is the most natural one. That's like he's literally accidentally fallen and he kept going, and yeah, it was incredible. And that ended up being in the film, so it was just like I don't know. There's just then going up to him and then talking about it, and then like it's just incredible. And then also, when you're working on these films and you're seeing all of this happening, you're also seeing how especially as a creator, you're seeing how the director reacts. You're looking at how the writer or the cinematographer, how do all of them feel about it? You're getting all these idiosyncratic
Mm.
things that you can't really put into words unless you wrote a whole book about how it was to work on that movie. But like, yeah, they all these little things stick with you, people's reactions, people's commitments, people's passions, and then also just like Star Wars, for example, so much, man. Like the
Yeah.
rap party is one that I will never forget. There was
Yeah.
like a crazy rap party. It was like 3 floors. You had like Jamie Oliver cooking dinner, like for like all the head of departments. I remember this is what happened. I go to Old Billingsgate. I go in. I've never been there before, and I go into the elevator. There walks out Tilda Swinton, and she looks at me dead in the eye. I'm like, whoa. We go into the elevator, end up on a random floor. Jamie Oliver's like, everyone's sitting there and he's like cooked food for everyone. And I don't know, he's doing a speech. I don't know what was happening there, to be honest. I needed to get out. I took a U-turn quick because I was like, wrong floor. And then like I went to a different floor and it was like an Alice in Wonderland garden. And people were just like having such a great time. And there was like cloudy champagne, which is like weird. So like you had to like I didn't even know that existed. It was sort of coming out in like clouds and people were like had to drink it by like breathing it in. I don't know until today. I'm like, okay, what was that?
What
And
was
then
that
there's
all
people
about?
like on the ceiling. There's people on the ceiling like hanging down and like little creatures and stuff. And then there's just people you've worked with for months and months and months, 8 or 9 months, and you're just so happy to see them and be celebrating with them. And then on another floor, there's like Dynamo doing like tricks on the floor and other stuff going on there. And yeah, it was just like an incredible night. And I always think to myself, if I like, there's so many different ways that night could have gone. If I didn't hang around with a certain person, or if I didn't do this, or I didn't do that, I could have done something totally different. I could have. It's just one of the. I think that's what I also love about film festivals. Not to get derailed, but just like I love how film festivals like sometimes you can only watch one movie at obviously you can only watch one movie at a time, but
Mm.
then there's so many films premiering around you, like a
Yeah.
place like Toronto, which where I went, and that's really exciting. It's like an atmosphere where yeah, everyone is just enjoying themselves and you can't control it. You have to let go and you're just like, yeah, I'm just gonna go along with the ride and it is what it is. So yeah, lots of incredible memories and hopefully many more to come.
Mm. Yeah.
Um,
And just quickly, I mean, that scene in 1917 where George is running down, that's one of my favorite scenes in cinema, in film in general. And it's so that was born out of an extra accidentally bumping into him.
it's pretty
And
much, yeah.
yeah. Oh,
What I find really funny about that is like he bumps into him and then in the film he just dies. Like he doesn't get back up. I'm just like that was like I don't remember noticing that on the day because we were so busy like focusing on George. But in retrospect, it's like
wait, hang
you
on a
just
sec.
that how you die in the world
Yeah,
war? Like
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. It's just funny. It's just one of those movie things. It's like, oh, maybe he got up after like a minute. Who knows?
Yeah,
Maybe he just I don't
maybe it's
know.
hurt. I sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Who
But
knows?
like,
But it was
yeah,
effective.
I'm so glad you like. Yeah, it's Sam Mendes directed that movie. It's
Yeah,
film history. I'm really glad to be a part of it. Yeah.
yeah, fantastic. Abdullah, thank you so much, man. I've really loved talking to you today. It's been great to hear about your career and just as I've said a few times, how you're already achieved so much, and you're gonna just keep going, man. You're gonna achieve so much in your life, and I can't wait to see what else you've got. You're obviously your next short, and obviously your features and stuff that are coming up, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing more of your work, man. And I think it's just going to keep getting better. And once again, thank you for the opportunity for Path to Ecstasy, man. I really mean that. It was a really lovely shoot. I met incredible people like yourself, Mike, Louie, and some other greats. And also like the crew as well, the cinematographers, the sound people, and everything. It was a real good shoot, and that's a testament to yourself of how you like to work, and also how you like to create things as well. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
No, thank Thank you, Oliver. Thank you for being part of the film, firstly, and then also for doing this. It's very cool to talk about the film and talk about the journey. It's yeah, incredible. And congratulations on this podcast. You've got so many cool people, and
Oh.
I'm sure the guests are just going to get better. They're obviously going to get better. Come on.
Well, I'll put it out there. I'll put it out there to the universe. So let's see what happens. But anyway, if you just hang on, I'll finish the recording. I'll say goodbye to you one-to-one, man. And but guys, this has been the Uncensored Critic podcast, and I will be back very soon. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for listening. And once again, Abdullah Kahn, thank you, sir.
Thank you.